Welcome back to Razmafsar TV. I am really happy to have Marco back on our channel. Today, it's a very special topic, and I'm sure for everyone here on this channel, it will be very, very interesting because Marco's field of research is biology. Marco, correct me if I'm wrong, but a very interesting area of biology. Marco, could you please tell us what you do in your field of research, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me here again. And hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to share a little bit. So to my, let's say, daily job, yes, I work in a special field of biology and medicine that is defined as longevity or aging science. So I studied how and why we age and how can we change that. So the work is around, can we regenerate and rejuvenate our bodies, and after we understand what are the drivers of this biological process that drive aging, and with aging, age-related diseases, because that's a main problem. The problem is, how can we add, my main personal motivation is, how can we add not just life to years, but years to life, but life to years, right? We want to live a long, healthy life. And currently we spend, some people, 20, 30% of our life sick with multiple diseases.
Yes.
And that's something I always had an inspiration since a little kid. I've always been inspired by this question. I was actually very young. I was 5 years old when I decided that I wanted to cure aging, and I started with this mission very early. And at the age of 7, I had my first lab. I put together, a little chemist and a microscope, and I have several scientists and physicians in the family that kind of helped me. And I'm still on that mission. I'm less naive now, but I still think that can be done. At least we can target aging to treat age-related diseases, to go upstream to what is driving those diseases, which is, neurodegenerative disease such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, many, many others, lung fibrosis, kidney, all the things that shut down after a certain age, right? That typically in humans is around 60, 65 years of age. That's when there is this inflection point that suddenly, every year there is an exponential risk to develop one and multiple conditions. Every year that passes after that, the risk is increasing exponentially. But before that, we're healthy. Even when we have predispositions that, most likely you will have that condition, the chronic degenerative conditions. When you're young, that does not happen, but only after a certain age, we start to develop those. Why? Now we understand part of it, and we can really use this to develop therapeutics that can prevent or revert some of those processes.
Okay, let us just start. Marco, excuse me, I'm asking you, could you just turn off your camera and put it on again? I'm so sorry for this.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Could you please...
Let me know when you need me to do it. I'm happy to.
Thank you. I think there is something wrong with my Zoom. I need to ask my friend to have it checked. Just a question for you. Let us start. So I did understand you correctly. So it is longevity is not only to increase the number of years we'll live, it's also to have a good life and live healthy. So there are two sides to this. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes, that's absolutely. And in a way, we should really differentiate aging versus health versus, medium and maximum lifespan, meaning how long can you live and how healthy can you live, right? The two things are different. And it's not necessarily by increasing one, you change the other one. You increase the chance to survive if you're healthy, sure, and live healthier, but you may still, have a max lifespan. That's different. Changing max lifespan, I think human is believed right now to be around 120. Some people is maybe 40, but we have no any case reported about that. But changing that is different. What we can change right now with our science is to make sure that you can live a healthy life for longer time, instead of starting as I said, around 60, 65, 70, maybe in the 80s, 90s, and have enough energies to enjoy your life and to contribute. A question that sometimes I get is, well, we already have too many people in the planet, right? We are an overpopulated world with aging population, and that's a problem. So how can we sustain that? And yes, it's true. But again, the idea is not to have people living for longer and increase our population, but having the same people being healthier for longer. So there will be a major reduction of burden of healthcare costs global-wise. Now, if we think people complain, so, well, I have to leave to pay taxes to sustain elderly people that are sick. So, well, that's not going to be an issue, right? It's now been, calculated now that just postponing by one single year the onset, the development of age-related diseases is in the 10 digits trillion of dollars saved in cost, healthcare cost in US. If we change it by 10 years, we're talking about hundreds of trillions just saved in cost. But there is more to that, right? If we add a generation of the wiser generation to our society, that instead of, once you reach that point in life that you now can go, that you have nothing to prove, you kind of, you're hopefully, I think most people are more established, mature, and you can give back. You can lead society, younger generations as well. Right now, those people start to be sick and lose interest in life, right? Yes. And we lose this. Yeah. But what if we add this? What if we actually now retain this knowledge and this wisdom that will help humanity to grow and make better choices? Yeah. So there is a social impact in doing that, and that's the way I see this.
That's right. That's right. Of course, I experienced myself, some couple of times, I need to say, that people were sick and they had no energy and they didn't want to live longer. So we see that, right? So, and this is always because of diseases, and be the, real body diseases or also psychological, but they develop and they don't get rid of that, right? Like very big depressions and many other things, Marco, right? And yeah, I saw that, right? I saw the thing is, Marco, do we have something like that the cells or human body cells start to destroy themselves, like, some problems inside? Is it aging like that the body starts to attack itself, or is always outside influences?
That's a good question. So there are many reasons, right? I'd say that it's a complicated. There are many drivers of aging. Right now, let's say grossly speaking, there are variations, but in the field, we identified about 9 hallmarks of aging, different processes that are behind this degeneration. They're somehow all connected, and that could be loss in function in stem cells, DNA damage, chronic inflammation, and there are many processes. But in a way, everything boils down to pretty much 2 things that somehow is one. It is really accumulation of damage of different ways, different sorts, and it's sort of an increase of background noise. So let me explain a little bit better. Life runs through this binary system, which is a DNA, right? It's a very well-defined digital system, and the information that is written there as the code to translate this into different varieties of functions that makes a cell and tissues and organs and living form. Now, and that's one thing. So when we accumulate damage to this digital information, things start to break apart, obviously, right? Imagine, if you have a hard disk in a computer and you start to lose information, then the programs start to not work properly until it doesn't work anymore. There are bugs and stuff. And there are many things that we are exposed into our life that constantly challenge our information in our cells. And that depends on our lifestyle, but depends on the environment. Like a smoker will intoxicate many cells in the body. And for example, a smoker has a prematurely aged biologically lung tissues and other tissues in the body. So despite his chronological age, will be biologically aged faster. But someone who had cancer and had to do chemotherapy, radiotherapy, those are very toxic. And if cancer survivors are biologically prematurely aged. And they will develop sooner age-related diseases. Even in pediatric cancer, children with lymphomas, leukemias, and things like that, they do therapies. Chemotherapy is very aggressive, and they survive. But then in the 30s, they can develop the same condition that someone typically developed in the 60s. So cardiomyopathies. The neurodegenerative conditions, even like depressions are all connected, right? Loss of energies, frailty. But we are also exposed to environmental factors. Even radiations coming from the sun and simply from the space are constantly challenging us. And even physical, emotional stress is an effect on the body. Eventually, that boils down to accumulating damage on the one hand, but there is also another type, which is an analogic information, which is, so the DNA is wrapped around some proteins that create a scaffolding, but they also have a regulatory function, which is what is called epigenetic.
Yeah.
So that's very important because that's the information. It's not like digital anymore, but it's really analogic and can be modulated. It's really what defines how the DNA is used. It's like a director of playing music can change constantly how the music can be done, like orchestrating everything and shutting down certain information in certain cells or tuning up certain things and that very responsive to how things are in the environment. As you can imagine, that makes our cells highly exposed to accumulation of noise, of losing this tune over time. And so the music starts to be like scratches on a disc, start to be noisy. And this and another accumulation of damage, of noise that slowly makes our cells to lose control and sink. And so things start to fall apart. And as a result, you might have cells damaged too much to a point that can escape the body control and become cancer. Because accumulated damage and because the body is not able to eliminate those cells, because we have ways to protect us from cancer, but or cells, the stem cells start to lose the capacity to repair, and instead they start to make fibrosis in our tissues. Immune cells become less functional and they become less able to respond to infections and parasites. So all this is a slow process that can, if you keep yourself healthy, you can maintain this, but inevitably at some point you will start to accumulate enough damage that you have this risk. But you can accelerate this. If you have a life that exposes yourself to a lot of damage and stress, this will happen sooner. Or you can try to move this later in time. So that's really aging. We can boil everything down to accumulation of damage and noise that make us losing the capacity to kind of orchestrate all the functions that are regulated within our cells. But there are ways that now we are learning that can be repaired or helping the body to repair or get rid of this damage or the drivers of damage, and somehow instructing the body to go back to a healthy or healthier state.
Okay, Marco, just two things before we go ahead. Can I, excuse me, may I ask you to just readjust your camera again? I need to do something about my Zoom. It's from my side, I'm aware of that. My apologies.
Yeah, I'm gonna do this regularly, so you don't have to ask, and hopefully we'll keep
Thank you.
keep that in video. Yeah.
Just a question for you. So how are you going to, it's like a genetic engineering, right? Or manipulation, if I may call it in a negative way. I don't want to call it manipulation. Is it like you inject something to to a person, to a patient, or what do you do to have influence on this?
Yes. Okay. So that's a broader question. I'll try to answer in multiple ways. So first of all, let's say I've been like working and studying on this like as an academic. That's what I've been doing at Stanford University in my lab for a long time. And but more recently, a few years ago, I started two biotech companies based on the science that I was developing and others to translate this science into therapeutics. So that we have a pharmacological or other interventions to really help the cells in our body to fight this damage, and so going upstream to the cause of a disease instead of trying to treat every single disease and patching things. The idea of this longevity therapeutic is, can you go to the main cause of that, which is aging, or the mechanisms of aging, to treat age-related diseases? And so that's what we're doing. So now let me maybe explain. So we're not talking about the genetic engineering or manipulation. This is actually how we discover things, right? So many amazing results that in the past maybe 10, 20 years, that's really, this field is fairly new. If we can now talk about developing therapeutics against aging and seriously, is because we reached enough critical mass in science and also in the medical field to believe that this can be done. But like 15, 20 years ago, if I was going around saying, oh, I want to start a company doing this, people would have run away or laughed at me and at the others that are doing that. So, but more recently, this started to be a reality, and many tried, like us. I'm not the only one, but it's a small field that is growing. But there are other companies trying to do the same, including a major company who went in this mission is Calico, which is a spin-off of Google. Right? They put lots of capitals and attracted lots of talents from academy industry with the goal of, can we find a cure for aging? And there are some others, and we are among those. Now, our cells have an intrinsic mechanism as a sort of a survival. Any cell, like life, developed in two ways: either by expanding through reproduction at the cost of survival, or when the situations are extremes, and we're talking about very simple organisms, we have any innate mechanisms of survival that makes the cells very resilient and maximizing the resources to repair itself to a certain extent. So we can, first of all, tune and move and tell the body how much you need to use those resources to maximize your capacity to survive into an environment. Yeah. And typically in our lifestyle, modern lifestyles, we tell our body that we don't need that, right? We overeat, we don't exercise, we live a very stressful life, and maybe we don't sleep enough. We do all the things that tell our body actually to damage, to decay. So comfort typically tells the body that everything is okay and they can use energy for something else. in reality challenging our body in many ways, actually is telling our body to activate these survival mechanisms. So there are simple ways that science now has been established and clarified in many ways, from simple organisms such as yeast, where initially people studied those things, and worms and flies and mice and humans.